Barney franchise has always been one to adapt and change over time. From reinventing the television show's format to the progression of the Barney costume itself, nothing seems to stay the same for too long in Barney's world. If anything stayed the same, it's Barney himself. Aside from some aesthetic changes and some performer-specific traits, Barney's been the same kind, fun-loving dinosaur from our imagination. But it took more than a few tries and a few scripts to get to the recognizable dino we all know. So without further exposition, let's take a look at some of the extinct concepts and characters that led up to the creation of Barney. In the late 80s, first-time mom Cheryl Leach had finally found a home video that kept her young son's attention. We Sing Together, a show in which stuffed animals come to life, which may come across as familiar. While the video worked for a while, Leach's son quickly outgrew it, and she found herself in the same situation. This setback would not deter the former schoolteacher from formulating her own solution. While the initial concept of We Sing was centered on several larger-than-life imaginary friends, if Cheryl could instead create just one really fleshed-out character that was actually teaching the audience something, they'd have a much better chance of connecting and making a lasting impact. Some of the original characters Leach thought of on a fateful day in the midst of Dallas traffic materialized in the form of more traditional kids' toys. Said Leach, quote, "For centuries, kids have drug around a blanket or a bear or something they sleep with and love," unquote. The blanket concept was certainly a creative idea. I can't help but to be reminded of Blanky from 1987's The Brave Little Toaster, but I share Leach's sentiment that having a live-action, sentient blanket may have been too hard. Additionally, having this proto-Barney be a bear may have been a bit too close to We Sing's Hum Bear, so that idea was in dire need of replacement. Luckily for Leach, inspiration presented itself in the form of Invasion of the Robot Dinosaur, a traveling museum exhibit. Leach's son Patrick was enamored with the dinosaurs, namely the T-Rex, and the idea also resonated with Barney co-creator Kathy Parker, just so long as the new dino character wouldn't be too scary for her daughter. Dennis DeShazer, the third member of the Barney trifecta, is owed credit for finally deciding on Barney's name. Names like Danny and Colby were originally suggested, and you can see that some of those names would have aged better than others, but Barney won out for the better. So, now we finally established that our character Barney is going to be a dinosaur. It's March of 1988, and the first script is being written. We wouldn't totally consider an entirely new character, would we? We would! For some background, actress Sandy Duncan was a large part of the original hype around the Backyard Gang with her role as the mom. After some discussion between the director, John Grable, and Duncan's agents, she agreed to participate in the project in order to wait out the Writers Guild strike that prevented her from working. In the notes of the Backyard Parade, the original version of the Backyard Show, it's mentioned that Duncan may actually end up voicing Barney, and if so, the character would have had, at the very least, their name changed. This culminated in the rather dramatic overhaul that was the first draft of A Day at the Beach, the third, but in-universe, first story in the Backyard Gang series. Instead of the kids joining Barney in an imaginary trip to the beach, they'd be greeted by Cecilia the Sea Serpent, an inflatable pool toy from their kiddie pool that comes to life. Since Cecilia, or Cecilia, depending on where you look, isn't overtly physically described in the script, I took more than a few artistic liberties in what she may have looked like in costume form. Close to Barney, but more aquatic, and lacking a long serpentine neck, as that probably would have been difficult to move around in. I think my favorite Cecilia moment in the original script is where she declares that she's not silly, she's just crazy. Go Queen. Cecilia was ultimately dropped as, once again, having a new character for each video falls into the We Sing trap of losing character familiarity and brand identity, as well as being expensive to maintain. So, now we're back at Barney the Dinosaur. But what does he look like, and more importantly, what will he be like? In May of '88, pre-production on Barney and the Backyard Gang began. The series director hired production designer Jamie Ruth Connor to work with Irene Corey Design Associates and actually create the Barney costume. This is the design Irene came up with, and while, in professional terms, it is exceedingly cool, it clashes really hard with what the Barney team wanted. Irene passed the project on to her niece, Suzanne Lockridge, and it was up to her and the series production designer to tame the look of Barney. So our striped and spotted Carnotaurus-esque Barney is out, but maybe we need to look at the script for ideas. The Backyard Parade, that script from March that we mentioned briefly before, actually does have a more detailed description of Barney. Perhaps this portrayal might be closer to the vision. The Backyard Parade, which was originally written by Pat Reeder, features his own take on Barney. A true cartoon dinosaur, this Barney is green, dressed in peak 1980s hip fashion, complete with shades, and is described as both easygoing and moving in a "where's the party" attitude. Reader described his idea of Barney as a sort of wisecracking, David Addison Jr. from Moonlighting-inspired guy who could be funny but still have enough heart. Despite still not being what the creators were looking for character-wise, even in this script, you can see the sense of imagination that Reader had imbued into Barney even this early on. While it tends to get a bit buried in Barney's constant jokes, I think this concept could have made for a good side character down the road. While the script doesn't explicitly state what kind of t-shirt or glasses Barney is supposed to have, I've given him an 80s ringer tee and aviator shades to really hit home the point that it is 1988. So, now we're back to square one, and Lockridge and Connor need to modify the original Irene Corey concept into something that isn't a walking stereotype or a realistic dino. Concept art from this time shows the gradual softening and rounding off of Barney, and a definite design pattern beginning to emerge, including his back spots. Barney's claws were replaced with what are affectionately known as toe balls, and his hands became harmless mittens. It was at this point that Barney finally became purple, a popular and gender-neutral color chosen by Lockridge. This final Barney checked all the boxes, proving that sometimes the third time really is the charm, and it's always good not to go with the first draft. I think it's fascinating watching this early character evolution the same way it is to watch how the Barney of 1988 onward would also go on to change and evolve. As mentioned before, though the look and feel of the show, the costume, and the character may change, the love and spirit of Barney is always there. I'd like to especially thank Barney History Fans this time around for their incredibly helpful blog posts, which are absolutely worth a read. Additionally, if you'd like to see more of those early Backyard Gang scripts, don't hesitate to check out Barney Builder's videos, where you can hear them in full. As always, if you're looking to learn more, don't forget to check out my friends at Barney Wiki and Barney History Fans. Thanks for watching!